Hello, and welcome to another episode of View for the Road. I'm Bob Abrahamson, and today I'm talking with Harry Neeld. This series, I'm speaking to my colleagues that are out visiting our clients hither and yon, and they're here to let us know what's going on in the marketplace and share some tips and tricks. So, Harry, why don't you take a second to introduce yourself, what your title is, and how long you've been with Waltron?
Well, howdy, y'all. My name's Harry Neeld, and I'm a sales technician. I've been with Waltron for 4.5 years now.
That's
I'll,
great. And where are you
I'd say
located at?
I'm located in New Jersey, near Trenton. So
Okay. And so you're sales technician. Do you have a territory? Is it more East Coast, West Coast, or is it all over the country? Where do you go generally?
I've got a sales territory, and that's New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and West Virginia.
Okay.
But then I also travel all over the place for service stuff when I got to go help the service manager.
Okay.
Um, I'll go all over the place.
Got it. Got it. And I can see you, it looks like you're on your phone right now. So maybe you're on the road, and I do appreciate you taking a little time out of your schedule to speak with us and share some of what you're learning. We had a brief prep for this call, and you mentioned you wanted to talk about some of your clients that had some issues or concerns around their sodium. So why don't you
Yeah,
just kind of flesh that out a little bit? Let us know who you're working with, what their concerns with, and how you try to help them out or address those concerns.
yeah. Well, so I was working with the Vistra plant in Ohio, in southern Ohio.
A what plant?
Vistra, the company.
Got
It's a
it.
gas burner, about 1,200 megawatt gas burner,
Got it.
um, and they were having some strange readings on their sodium analyzers. They read very, very low at that plant. They'll read, zero point 0.5, zero point 0.4, and they would
That
intermittently get
ppm, ppb, what are we?
ppb.
Okay.
Yeah, so they
I'm a
read.
layman. I'm still coming up to speed on some of this terminology. So I might ask you some questions that seem very basic, but just to level set in case anybody watching this just doesn't know. So
Right.
got it.
So yeah, parts per billion. So that's very, very low. That's very good water they have there. And they were getting intermittent readings of about 3 or 4, which obviously for them is very high, but it was intermittent. It was weird. So they were using our sodium analyzer and watching the readings go and using it to try to diagnose where that sodium incursion was coming from. They ended up figuring out it was a glycol incursion.
Figure that out.
They figure that out because when you get glycol in your processed water, it'll increase sodium and conductivity only a little bit. And
Mhm.
but because it was intermittent, because you're not always injecting glycol into the system, so they figured out that one of the seals on their glycol injection pump was leaking a little bit. Anytime the pump turned on, the sodium would go up a little bit, and when the pump turned off, it would go back down again. They have 4 of our sodium analyzers, so they were using all of them to try to figure out where this little incursion was coming from.
Okay. So there is a glycol pump. I am learning this industry. I have a healthcare background. So two questions.
Sure.
Why why do they introduce glycol? What's the purpose of doing that? And is this part of the silicone pump, or is this something outside of the pump that was just affecting the water that we were reading?
You introduce glycol for cooling various other parts without getting too involved in it. It's for cooling other stuff,
Got
and they had a pump that the seal wasn't sealing right.
on
So
on
anytime,
their pump into the water.
yeah,
Okay.
yep,
Because I know we have glycol analyzers, so I'm just like, if that was related to this, but unrelated to us, they were introducing glycol. They had a leak in their pump, and so then it was causing sodium levels intermittently to spike when it was leaking into the water samples.
yeah, but not a ton. So because at first they thought they had a condenser leak because they had our sodium analyzers had caught that for them a number of years ago.
Okay.
And so at first they were like, oh yeah, maybe it's a condenser leak, and then it kind of went away, and then it would come back, and it kept, and they ended up. That's how they figured it out. And
So,
really, the moral of the story is our sodium analyzers are very good at catching problems that people have, even if it's not a necessarily sodium problem.
so did you help them find the glycol leak?
Well, I helped them trust the sodium analyzer. When I was there, they're a quarterly service contract for me.
Okay.
So when I was there, I guess 6 months ago was when it started. The problem was started, and I noticed, yeah, their sodium was reading 3.5 or 4. And I was like, that's pretty high for these guys.
Yeah.
And so I was talking with the maintenance manager and actually the plant manager too, and they were giving me the background on their condenser leak that they had a number of years ago, and I was like, well, that could definitely be the case because it was on their condensate analyzer. So I did everything. I did all the service on it, retubed everything. Even if it didn't need it, I just did it to make
Yeah.
sure that it wasn't the analyzer. So I helped instill more confidence in the analyzer for them, and to the point where that was the tool that they used. I don't know the whole story, but I guess somebody finally figured out, wait a minute, when this pump goes on, the sodium starts. So they started testing different stuff, and I guess figured out it was their glycol pump.
So what I'm hearing is service above and beyond what may have been required. You serviced the heck out of this analyzer to make sure there was nothing wrong with it. They trusted the Waltron analyzer, and that allowed them to look elsewhere, figure out in their plant what's going on, and then someone was able to connect the dots between glycol pump going on, analyzer spiking, or going up a little bit to 3 or 4. This is an issue
Yeah.
on our glycol. Let's look at that. They tore it apart and said, oh, we got a gasket here that's causing a leak. So they were able to catch that, correct it before any damage was saw out in the plant.
Yeah, they seem to catch it pretty quick.
So
It,
the troubleshooting throughout the plant.
yeah.
Excellent. So did you say you had another story to share with us?
Yeah, it's a similar story. This was close to a year ago now, but I was at Merck, the pharmaceutical company. It's one of my good customers right up in Rahway. They've got a powerhouse there, and they have one of our sodiums and they have silica in their demineralized water building.
Mm-hmm.
And the silica's reading kind of funny, but they were having some other problems that would cause the silica to read funny. So that wasn't really the thing that got me thinking that, oh, maybe they have an RO that blew, which ended up being the case. But when I walked over to the sodium analyzer and saw that reading 45 ppb, when they also there read under 1 ppb,
Okay.
I saw that and I was like, okay. I did the service on the sodium analyzer again. A lot of service on the sodium analyzer to make sure it wasn't the analyzer problem. Calibrated I can forget exactly what it was, but calibrated nicely, and then went right up to 45 ppb again. I'm like, okay, so it's clearly the water here. Then did the silica analyzer, and the silica analyzer did not fix itself either.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I called the guy there. I'm like, hey, I think you might have an RO membrane that blew. And he's like, oh, really? And I explained the whole thing. And he's like, okay. And then a couple days later,
what's an RO membrane?
Reverse osmosis. It's one way to actually make water,
Right.
demineralize water.
Got it. Yeah.
Those membranes, especially if you accidentally hit them with chlorine, those membranes that can break through, because those membranes, it's kind of like a filter. It filters out a lot of the sodium, silica, and all the other. Yeah. And he figured out one of those membranes had broken through. So they were getting some bad water. I hope I saved him some time. I'm there every month, so it couldn't have been running too long.
Okay, so these analyzers are doing their jobs.
Yes.
What I'm hearing from other folks, I've heard it from Gary, I heard it from Joe, is these plants, and it gets across industries. I think you're the first one who shared something around a pharmaceutical plant, but there's a ton of things that they need to look at and monitor and keep up and running. And sometimes looking at the analyzer results not always fall by the wayside a little bit. It sounds like, was it just coincidence that you were there on the day that the silica spiked to 45, or were they just not necessarily catching this? What was going on there? Any idea?
Well, a lot of the guys there just write the number down without, but that's just part of the job. Oh, write the number down. I mean, really, this is more of this whole thing it's not really about sodium. It's more of why you should have a service contract, because we can instill a lot more confidence in your analyzers. When I go in there and I do all the service and I say, look, I'll explain everything I did, and it's still reading like that. They say, oh, well, maybe we should pay attention to these things a little more, and like that kind of thing.
Yeah, what they shared with me as well is that what was once the chemist job has fallen to someone else that may not necessarily have that chemistry background. So a chemist is going to see 45 ppb and say, holy cow, this new technician out there, maybe without that background or degree, just says, oh, okay, well, 45, check, got it down. So they don't know. And so because of what's going on and just being able to staff these plants, I think this cuts across all industries. it may make some sense to get a service technician. We can work with them and give them a cheat sheet to say, if you see these things are out, this is an issue. But because
Yeah.
they're so busy, because they're overwhelmed, it sounds like the service contracts, money well spent. And I know that we also will go in for some of our clients and we'll actually take a look at any equipment they have out there just to make sure, like, hey, I think Joe was telling me how he ended up servicing someone else's equipment because there was an issue. So
Oh
he
yeah.
just fixed it up. Is that your experience too?
Yeah, we have a plant in way western Pennsylvania
Mm.
that we service every analyzer that's in that plant, and they only have one Waltron analyzer. There's
Oh,
85 other analyzers that we service that are not ours.
yeah,
So the service department can
sure.
service any the water analyzers at least. I mean, I'm sure Ken and I could probably figure out how to fix most things, but
Gotcha. Really, that's interesting. So the takeaways I'm having from this conversation is Waltron analyzers, at least specifically across a couple parameters. We talked silica, we talked sodium. They're doing their jobs. They're
yeah,
catching issues and allowing our clients in multiple industries to really troubleshoot what's going on with their water quality. And that's why I work with Waltron. But whatever's going on in the industry, some of the chemistry expertise that used to reside in our clients' plants may not necessarily still be there. Things have been lost. So that's a good reason to think about turning to Waltron to help you with your service to make sure you're not just logging the data, but you're understanding the data and reacting to the intelligence in that data, which is more and more we're seeing that as a gap. Is that fair to say?
yeah, I would say so. There's now a disconnect between who works on a lot of the equipment and who knows how the whole system works. It used to be, and this, there's varying levels of this, but I do find that certain sites are more prone to going through the motions
Mhm.
without understanding why than other sites are.
Yep, yep, totally makes sense. Excellent. Every time I speak with you guys, I learn something new. My base of knowledge gets a little bit stronger. I think I've been working with you guys for about half a year. I got a long way to go. I do appreciate you taking the time. Hopefully, the clients out there listening to this, they're gathering some nuggets to help them as well. I really appreciate your time, Harry.
Yeah,
Thanks you.
of course.
I'm sure I'll be chatting again.
Yeah, a little hard to pin me down. I'm usually all over the place, but once when I get a moment, yeah, it's
That's
good.
great. Thanks.